John James graduated with an MBA in Finance and Math, Methods and Computers. He then went into corporate finance and investment banking with Dean Witter.
Success is what drove me, rather than what I really started out with was integrity. I think integrity more than anything, and my Christian beliefs. Back in the day, I was in investment banking. We would do enormous financial deals on a handshake, and only when it was agreed to did we sign an agreement, where there were hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, and it was all done on word. And somewhere I lost that in the pursuit of success or trying to avoid failure.
At age 33, John left investment banking and bought a small-town bank in Minnesota. While running the bank, John let an individual contractor, who was unable to pay his loans, get him in trouble.
So in anticipation of bank examiners coming in, I, in effect, looking back to make it simple, falsified some loans, falsified some borrowers. They were real people, but they weren't real borrowers.
When the contractor realized that John had broken the law, he informed John that if he were ever to be cut off, he would turn him in to the regulators. As time went on, John became unable to deal with his dishonesty and turned to alcohol.
I lived every day in sheer terror and self-hate. And the only way I could solve it was through alcohol.
On June 6, 1999, John's daughter suggested treatment, and he began rehab at Hazelden Rehabilitation Center and overcame his alcohol dependency. However, John realized that unless he found the honesty his program called for, he would eventually relapse.
So I called the bank from Florida and I said, please cut the man off. So I did what I needed to do and he did what he needed to do, which was call the regulators. And on April 13th, 2 days after I got back from Florida, I pulled into the bank parking lot and there were numerous government cars there. And that was really the beginning of the end of my old life. But more importantly, it was the beginning of my new life. Soon after, I was indicted. My daughter suggested to me that I might be good at working in recovery and treatment and helping other people with their addiction. So I started to work at Hazelden at their halfway house as a technician. I think once the Lord really knew He had my attention, He was unrelenting in His pursuit and His love for me. And it came from people that He put in my path. I would say the first one that He put in my path on this new journey was my new wife. She's a born-again Christian, had been for many, many years, and was a member at North Heights.
John received his master's degree at Hazelden on August 18, 2005. He then married Julie 2 days later. On September 7, 2005, John was sentenced to 18 months in prison.
When I got to prison on November 7th, that's a day I'll never forget, I was terrified.
Upon arrival, John received a Bible and an invitation to Bible study from one of the inmates.
For the next 13 and a half months, I spent about 25 hours a week in Bible study and worship. It was the most fulfilling experience of my life. Through a series of circumstances also, then I came to a room in my dorm through the efforts of a black gang leader and drug dealer kingpin from Chicago. His name was Terrell, known as Brother T. And he essentially, as a Christian, and knowing me as a Christian, I think at that point, or suspecting that I might be, took me into his room. And that room became, on the campus, on the compound, a room of Bible study and prayer that other men would come and visit. I can't tell you how many times men would walk into that room and say, there's something about this room that's different. Terrell and I, or T, Brother T as we called him, became my Christian mentor. He began to school me not only in the words of the Bible, but of what it meant in my walk every day.
After completing his sentence, John and his wife maintained communication with Terrell. It was John's hope that Terrell would come work in Minnesota.
One day, Julie and I looked across the street in our neighborhood, and there was a house across the street that's been in foreclosure. I looked at that house, and the Lord said, that's a Christian sober house for men who are coming out of treatment or possibly prison, and T is the manager.
Terrell was released from prison early and eventually moved to Minnesota.
Soon after that, I'd been telling him about the volunteer work I'd been doing at this mission down in East St. Paul, which was originally Urban Outreach Center. And T, when we first got out, he said, I want to go to that mission. I want to see what it's like. And so he came. Today, Terrell is a street minister for Cure Ministries. My bunkie, as we say, from prison. We are still pursuing the sober house across the street, and it's very real to us. We have claimed it for the Lord, and so it won't sell until we're ready to buy it. We know that. This is a good life.